What's up everyone, Mike here from The Art of Guitar, here with a super quick lesson today about something that I learned about 10 years ago. I know it seems like it's pretty late in my career, but there was a time where I had no idea about guitar tones. I would just plug in and hope for the best, and if I bought a pedal, like a distortion pedal, I would just crank the gain all the way up and just go for it. And one time I was playing a show with one of my friends, and he's one of my guitar heroes, and he was trying to subtly hint to me that I was using way too much distortion. And I always compared my tone to his, and I noticed every time he played certain things, there was a lot of power to it, a lot of definition. And when I would plug in and play in my setup, it was always sort of like fizzled out, and it was hard to hear my guitar come through the mix. And so I realized after a long time of failing that it was because I was using way too much saturation or gain in my sound. And I wanted to show you with a backing track today how the difference is if you use just enough gain to get the job done versus if you use a whole bunch and oversaturate, okay? Now, this isn't gonna work for all styles of music. Obviously, if you're into death metal or certain, genres where you need a lot of distortion, go ahead and use it. But my advice is to dial it back as much as you possibly can. A lot of people like to hide, like myself, like to hide behind distortion if you feel more comfortable, like your mistakes aren't going to come through as much, or if you hold out a note, you're going to get better sustain, which is true. So what my trick is now is I use as little distortion as I need to get through 90% of my playing, and then for the extra 10% for the solos, I'll use either a compression pedal or a boost pedal to get more volume or distortion out of it, so I get more sustain. We'll get in more into that when I talk about pedals in the future in detail, but let's go ahead and do the backing tracks, okay? So the first one I'm going to do is with minimal distortion. It's still distorted, but it's more of like, I would say 40% distortion, versus the second, which is going to be 100%, okay? So here we go, first example. Okay, here's version 2. I added a distortion pedal on top of what I just had, so it's like an oversaturated sound. And it might seem like I'm exaggerating, but you'd be surprised what I used to do and what I hear a lot of people doing. And you'll hear it cuts off a lot of the power of each individual stroke, and it just sort of fuzzes everything out and becomes invisible almost, okay? Okay, so hopefully you heard a big difference. The second one was overly saturated. It started to disappear in the mix, and that'll happen. If you have trouble hearing yourself on stage, sometimes it's not always that your amp isn't loud enough. Sometimes it's you just have too much gain and you're just sort of dissolving into the mix, okay? So do yourself a favor and start to dial back the gain a little bit and see what you can live with. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period because you're going to feel like all your mistakes are coming through even louder, but that'll just make you a better guitar player. So I recommend practicing with as little gain as needed. And then, you could add more, like I said, for the solos or any part where you need a real saturated sound for sustain, for example. Hopefully that helps you guys out. It's something I wish I would have learned right at the beginning, but I had to go through a lot of pain to get to that conclusion. Thanks to my friend Jeremy for teaching that to me. And I guess we'll catch you at the next lesson. Thanks, guys. Bye.